There's no rule that you must have 3 warnings before someone's out.
What's the deal on the employee having to have 3 warnings before termination can take place?
In simple terms and answers, no, there's no rule that you must have 3 warnings before someone's out. There's no requirement from a legislation perspective. However, to determine if you've got adequate warnings or evidence comes down to looking at the seriousness of the situation, the conduct that has occurred, the employee's history, the risk of what's gone on, and whether improvement is possible. So you don't need to have 3 warnings. That person might have 1 warning or 2 warnings or no warnings on file, and termination is considered the appropriate action. Instead of counting on the number of warnings, focus on the procedural fairness. If we terminate here today, is it fair and reasonable to back our decision and action? Because for example, if there was clear evidence of fraud, that would be deemed serious misconduct and you can terminate without any prior history. However, if the situation was failure to follow company process or lack of response to our client communication or making mistakes in a spreadsheet consistently or lateness every Monday and Tuesday or things like that, that I would not sit here and recommend terminate. That would be a warning, and that I would need a couple of warnings before you pull the trigger. So it comes down to procedural fairness and assessing the situation, the risk, and what would be deemed fair and reasonable, and making sure that the termination is not considered harsh and unjust.
Well said. Now, I'm going to pull you back on something. Tell me, I think you used a word called procedural fairness.
Yes, yeah.
Can you
What does that
explain it in
mean?
practical terms? Yeah.
Basically, that is being fair to all parties involved, especially from the employee perspective. So that's like with our disciplinary process, don't just call them in and say, we're having a meeting today. Give them fair opportunity. Follow your process, follow your policy or your procedure, making sure that the employee knows the concerns, they know their options, they know their rights. That's your responsibility as the employer. Genuinely consider the responses that they put forward. Don't just ignore them or roll your eyes. You have to show that you've kind of done everything. Make sure you remain objective. It's not complicated. It's generally, in really simple terms, giving people a genuine opportunity to be heard and not making rash decisions without following the process. Processes are in place for a reason. And then the worst part is if you have a process that's documented and you don't even follow it, yeah, that's a clear no against procedural fairness.
Yeah, it's a good point, because sometimes, as crazy as it sounds, if we don't respond well, the employee will feel like they're being judged.
Yeah, correct.
And that's not what we want, because you're right. Doesn't matter how ridiculous it sounds, and how we body language can, whether it's a roll of the eyes, and we might think it's absolutely freaking ridiculous, but in their eyes and in their mind, it's not. So
Yes,
that's where, again, we sort of create this exposure, don't we?
correct. And be consistent.
Yeah.
Don't let one employee off with a slight tap on the wrist compared to the next one that you're going to give a warning if the same matter's being punished for. You know, that consistency and fair approach.
Yeah, that's it. Look, that's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because you're right, because just because you're friends with somebody, and I think the one you mentioned before in terms of the Monday, Tuesday, we've measured this for a long time in terms of team members taking a Monday off after a weekend or taking a Tuesday off after a long weekend, or and there are some people that push the boundaries and all of that, people coming in late. But you're right, if you're not consistent, like, well, why are you favouring them over there? Oh, because
Yeah.
you catch up with them for morning tea and lunches and you're always out So that means you're treating people differently. That is what people see.
Yeah.